today that when they search the car, one of the things that they're going to find in the back seat is a duffel bag belonging to the individual here. And so Officer David Godia, goes up to the front passenger side window. And Officer Anthony Hawley is behind him. And so David Godia begins to talk to him. And previous to that, the defendant has manifested that he's really pretty upset. He starts cursing. Why is this being hacked? Words to that effect. It's just a cracked windshield. And he's asked about his ID, if he's either Brad or Bryan. And he says something to the effect, you have my fucking ID. Why are you asking me? You know who I am. Well, the officer says, I may want to search you. He said, no. Well, you're going to need me. And he's told by Officer David Godia that he's got to get out of the car. The defendant asks whether or not he can take his man purse with him or if he needs to leave it behind. Officer David Godia first says, leave it behind, take it, do whatever you want with it. You just need to get out of the car. And at this time, if this is the passenger side, and this is where the defendant is seated, Anthony Hawley is just behind him, right there. Back up, that's all he is. The person in charge is David Godia. As the defendant starts to get out of the car with the man purse, Officer David Godia touches him, goes to touch his arm. And as he goes to touch his arm, and he's standing right here, now he's out. As he goes to touch his arm, the defendant goes to the area right here in his waist. And he goes to the area there for a purpose. He goes there because he has a .357 revolver. A revolver is one that has the bullets in the cylinder and that turn whenever there's a shot. Not to be confused with semi-automatic. It has the magazine and the bullets cycle through and the casings pop out. The difference for our purposes here is that the semi-automatic ejects the casings, whereas the revolver, the casings stay inside. He has a .357 large gun, and he whirls and says, I've got something for you, or I've got this for you. As he begins to whirl around, he holds it up and starts to point at Sir David Godia. It's all in one motion. It's all very quick. And David Godia is standing here. This is where the defendant is standing. And behind him, maybe not being able to see everything, is Anthony Hawley. At that point, David Godia begins to run. David Godia begins to run. Patsy Jones is watching this. She's at the back seat. And she's able to see the defendant's face, how he's got his jaw clenched. He even looks at her as he's holding the gun sideways. And he's walking towards police officers with the gun. Doesn't take a lot of steps. Just begins a movement in that direction. And she sees the gun as the bullet rings out. And she can hear the bullet because the window is open. Hears it. At that time, David Godia found hung. The only person back there is Anthony Hawley. The defendant then, at that point, Patsy Jones turns down and doesn't look up, but does hear a second shot. It's the same gun that's shooting. She'll tell you. It's the same gun that's shooting. And then she looks up again through the back window to the side and sees the defendant with the gun and now he's sighting David Godia as he's running away. And she's looking at him. Doesn't know what has happened outside. She just knows the two shots are rung out. And then she sees as the defendant begins to run in this direction, where you would be, to a grassy area there next to some apartments. Begins to run in that direction. And as he runs, David Godia being over there, he's got the gun like this and fires another shot. Then she begins to hear the return fire of David Godia, who has gone over to the area of 60th and 60th Avenue, the intersection of Oregon, approximately maybe 50 yards, maybe less than that, maybe 40 yards. And he begins to fire at the defendant. And he's able to hit him in the right knee. And the defendant goes down. And he still has the man purse with him. He's got white glasses, he's got a cell phone, and he's got the gun, the .357. And at some point, the defendant disappears around the building and continues on, running, walking. Don't know exactly how he did it. David Goody at that time is still fearful that he's going to be shot because he's got this individual out there with the gun. And rather than being out here in the open, because that's where he went and that's where he started shooting, he's afraid he's going to get hit. He runs back to an area across the street. So he would be on the west side. The Kia is on the east side. He goes to the west side to take cover behind a white car that's directly opposite. If this is the Kia, the white car's right here, it's behind him, so that he can see if anybody's coming, so he can take a shot. Okay. Looking around. Well, Patsy Jones is not going to stay in the car seeing all of this. She gets out of the car and says, "Don't shoot." She's saying, "Don't shoot," to David Goyen. And she's the person who actually gets to Officer Anthony Hawley first. And she goes up to him, and David Goyen is across the street, taking cover behind a white car. She goes up to him and notices, and she's there almost immediately after he's been shot. He's now at the back of the Kia, clearly started to go when he saw the defendant with a gun. And he has fallen in the back of the Kia with his head in the roadway and part of his body behind the rear bumper. And he's there, and as she looks at him, it appears to her that he's hunching up, trying to get up. See that? Once or maybe twice. She gets closer and looks at him, and by now it's light, so she can see. And she looks and she sees as he turns his head towards her and looks at her. He doesn't say a word, doesn't say anything. She notices, though, that he's spitting up blood and making gurgling sounds, but isn't saying anything. She also notices as he spits out his teeth. And yes, it's only a bridge. It is a bridge that he spits out. But it's his teeth that he has. And we know that other teeth were also loosened in the shot, because the shot didn't actually go into the brain. It actually went through his face on the right side, and then it came out on the left side. And the concussive effect just caused huge damage. There's no way that he was going to be sane. And so she then, as he looks up at her, he then goes face down into the pavement and ready for death. Because this type of injury is not one you can recover from. It'll take 4 to 5 minutes to die if you don't get medical intervention. But you're not going to recover either way. Well, police officers then get to the body, or Officer Anthony Hawley, shortly thereafter. But before they get there, David Cody is screaming at him after he has already gone down and his face is down. "Hawley, come to me. I've got you covered. Come to me." Officer Hawley is not going anywhere. Well, David Cody then goes over and drags him by a bulletproof vest, the one that's supposed to protect him, and drags him all the way back to where the white car is. It is there that other officers come, assist. They take Officer Anthony Hawley, stick him in the back of the patrol car, back seat, lay him down there, and they drive away onto Oregon Avenue to an area that's closer to 59 and 60th Avenue on the south side of the street. Coincidence, on the north side of the street, is where the defendant is hiding. And they take him there because the paramedics, the fire department, are not going to come into a scene that is not secure, where they might suffer some injury. And that's why they have to drive him out. But paramedics are waiting. They take him to the hospital, but it's to no avail. And the reason that it's to no avail, because the defendant's aim was true. One bullet was all it took to face of Anthony Hawley to kill him. Officer Anthony Hawley, who was just doing his job that February 19, 2007, more than 7 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. So we're going to take a break until 1:30. If you'd be back at 1:25. Until then, remember that admonition that I gave you, and we will see you at 1:25. We'll see you at 1:30, but you need to assemble at 1:25. Go ahead. I'll look them out. Okay, please be seated, everyone. Okay, we are outside the presence of the jury. We'll start with the defense opening statement at 1:30. Anything the state needs to put on the record?
No, thank you.
Anything from the defense?
No, sir.
Be prepared after the opening statement. We'll finish for the day. As I said, we're not going to have any witness testimony today, and then we'll talk about the motions that are outstanding at that time. All right?